Um, I'm Bill Anderson. Welcome back for another special live stream, and I have my good friend here, Ben Hayden, with me today. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm fantastic, Bill. How are you?
Yeah, very well. I, I gather from our conversation earlier in the week, Ben, that you guys have been a bit busy.
We've been flat out, Bill. Flat out. As with this rain that's come, it's just caused a lot of disruption in everyone's lives. But with electric, it's been a bit mad, to say the least.
So Ben, yeah, I had when I published this live stream, I had a note from a gentleman who said he'd been away for 3 weeks, he came back and had to tip everything out of the fridge and the freezer because his electrics had shorted.
Yeah.
I guess that the mains on the switch had blown, and he had to just empty the whole lot out. I mean, why is the question, Ben? Why is this
Okay.
happening?
So I'm going to roll. If we go back, 30, 40 years ago, when we used to have like rewirable fuses in the houses, and
Right.
when they used to go bang, you used to go up and you used to rewire the fuse. That was the technology then is put in place to protect people from any electric shock and
Yeah.
any dangers. Over the years, with the protection has become a lot better, and now we're at a point where we've got RCDs in place, which are there mainly to protect you if there's any
I-
problems at all.
Is that what I would call the trip switch?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to explain that this switch is normally the biggest switch out of the lot of them. Um, and it will say on it RCD, and it will have a test button on it as well. That test button you should be pressing every 3 months to make sure it does trip, and then you can reset it again.
Right.
So I think to make sure that is being tested and reset, because sometimes they can test okay, but then they won't reset again. So it's that the time then to replace it.
Right.
And the problem with these types of protection is, to put it simply, it has it has a massive effect when there's moisture anywhere. It will be able to tell any misleading current anywhere, and trip out. So that is the main problem that we've got, is that the protection is so sensitive, um, that as soon as the moisture comes and the rain, that's the time that we do have these problems. And it is a common problem. It isn't so much that the electric installation is poor. Don't get me wrong, it should withstand the rain, but with the amount of rain we get here, and then the heat, the condensation, it just plays havoc on our installations here in Spain. So I wouldn't
Yeah. But,
worry about it. I know
come
it's
on, Ben.
annoyance,
Come on, Ben.
but
I lived most of my life before I came to Spain. I lived most of my life in Scotland, right? Now, we we are talking about rain. If we have 300
but
and, 330 days of sunshine here, and in Scotland you have 330 days of rain, and I can remember half a dozen times in all these years the trip switch going for the electrics. What is it about either the electrics or the construction or the
so
installations here that's causing things to go pop as soon as we get some rain?
so the problem with that is then, Bill. So how long have you been in Spain for?
20 years.
So 20 years ago, the protection on the electric system was worse. It was old fuses, could have been cartridge fuses, probably even possibly in some places rewirable fuses. So now we're at a stage with the protection for the electricity system, because it's tripping. It's a good thing, really. It's showing that the protection's working on the circuits, which is what it's all
Yeah,
about.
but it's not a good thing if you're away and all the food in your fridge and freezer has to be binned when you come home.
So definitely, and I agree with that. And there's ways around this. We can get around this and find a way to make certain circuits
Mhm.
super protected, should we say. So if there is any of these sort of faults, if there is a problem, we can get the power back on as quickly as possible for people. But
Yeah,
there's it's to do with protection, really, rather than the poor installations, if you know what I
right.
mean. It's Protection is so sensitive, and that amongst with this epic weather we can have out here, and that's with the heat as well as the water. It can cause a lot of problems with the RCDs. They're so sensitive that they trip out, and that's why back when you was in Scotland, you probably never had the issues like you could have here, because you didn't have all the protection on the circuits like we do now.
Yeah, but we had a circuit board that looked pretty much the same as we have here,
Yeah,
with all the switches for different circuits in the house. Um, but I don't know. It seems that I don't know if it's the construction of the building sometimes. That they're not watertight.
they're not.
Flat roofs
I
are
think.
great in the summer.
Yeah, yeah.
Flat roofs are not great when you get heavy rain, are they?
I think part of the problem as well, Bill, is like maintenance on properties, especially like rental properties. There should be, well, in the UK there is a system we follow to make sure that each property is safe and electrically to rent out, and it will work. But it's not that sort of system over here in Spain, when people don't really get their houses maintained or checked. So because it's not
Right.
agreement with law, it's not, people just don't seem to get it done as much, and that's partly the problem, that they have an installation in a house that was done 10-15 years ago, kept adding to it, changing things around, but has anybody actually gone through the actual whole installation for how many years it's been in? And that's partly the problem as well. Things work loose. If you screw something up, especially electric, the vibrations over a period of time, even if you put it on the correct torque setting, it will still work its way loose eventually. And
Yeah.
that's the problem, that the board just never checks. The door gets slammed and opened, the switches get flicked up and down, pretty hard, but the actual connections behind it, they need inspection, they need looking at. And that's part can help, but the problem that over the past few weeks is the rain, and that constant moisture that we've had everywhere, that just seems to seep its way into every part of, like you say, the building, the construction, into joint boxes, into areas it wouldn't have sat before, with the mud on the top of it. I think it just
Yeah.
helped it get into better places. So we've found a lot of, there's been a lot to go about drying it out, and some of the advice we give to customers is just to say to them, basically, just hang on. As soon as better weather comes, it'll die off a bit more. But some of the, I know, Bill, but trying to find these faults, you're talking about rewiring properties, and who's got the money to all the time
Yeah.
rewire and invest? So I'll try and find the best way to suit the customer. Obviously, ideally, any bad circuit or any issue, it needs rewiring. But
Right.
the fact of the matter is, people just don't always have the money available to have it done. Sometimes, Bill, when people call me up and I go around, I'm the last person they want to see, because they know it's going to cost them money, because they've got a problem with their electricity.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know, it's
Yeah,
like if your car goes
but
bang, if you've got
I
money put
I
aside for your car, same
I
thing.
I know, Ben, and we had a problem. When would it have been? When we had the heavy rain last week. Um, I was out somewhere in the evening, and Vicky went to put our outside lights on, because we've got a very long driveway. It's about 50 meters long, and she went to put the
Yeah.
lights on in the driveway, and it just went pop.
Ah,
So,
yeah.
um, this was done by a professional electrician, but about 20 years ago, and I think maybe somewhere underneath the lamps, for example, there's some moisture got in there, and it just popped. I mean, it all came back on again fine when we switched that off again, and put the switch back up, and there was no more problems. Listen, Ben, I've got a comment from Lee, and he's saying there seems to be a lot more general outages in the whole street whenever the weather changes bad here. I remember than I remember in the UK, like nearly every time, even without tripping the breakers in the home. But we do have quite, I would say, regular outages, don't we here?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the whole, that's part of like the distribution network. Um, and again, with that, it was put in place, and it's not updated, and it's not um, it's not maintained very well, shall we say? So all
Right.
the joints in your street, when there could be moisture inside, again, it's a big problem that some of the pits could fill full of water that wasn't filling last week, but this week it has, because it had a build up of all the the dirt and the rubble and everything inside that's made it fill up again. So the outside mains, and why you're having power cuts and different issues with that is because the distribution network is old as well, and
Right.
um, it's just been added to and added to and added to over the years. So it's got a lot
Mhm.
of drain on it, a lot of and that's why, again, partly with the bills have gone up over the years because of the cost of renewing the system and renewing parts of it. Um, so it's just, again, it's just a poor installation.
Right. Yeah. And I remember coming here on holiday maybe 30 years ago when my kids were small, or to other parts of Spain. And what you're saying about how sensitive the systems are, I mean, I know this is about the amount of power that's contracted. Now I understand that. But I remember you put a kettle and a hairdryer on, it was pop, everything went off.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in that sense, I'm fairly familiar with it. And we've had our problems here. But I guess when something goes pop when there's heavy rain, there's probably not an enormous amount you can do to fix it at that moment, Ben, is there?
No, but some of the things we can do is we can rework part of the wiring around and get rid of that circuit for now, and then get as much power back on as possible. So there
Right.
are ways to isolate, shall we say, part of the circuits, but you know, then you've got to go back, and then you've got to put it back into wire it back in. So it's just whether the customer really, if we find boxes that are filled with water or joints that are filled with water, we can empty them, make sure there's drainage holes, so if that does happen again, it will run away from the connections, put some compound in them,
Yeah.
and protect it again that way. So there's a lot of ways we can look to keeping as much power on as possible. And it's not what I'm trying to say is, it's not the be all and end all, really. It'll be something or nothing. There'll be water in something somewhere. It's just how much time do you want to spend finding it, really? How much
Right.
money
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
want to invest in it?
We've got a comment here from Christine. She said in our area, I'm not sure where she is, in bad weather, it's on and off all the time. I've had periods where it goes on and off for a few hours. Can't remember outages with no warning since the miners' strike in the 70s. Infrastructures haven't been updated and cabling isn't far enough underground. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, the regulations out here for the underground services, the utilities, is different. And there's a lot more that they do get away with. Um, but sorry, yeah, there was a lot more that people do get away with, because they used second-hand contractors who go out there and do part of the work, and it's all sort of a price work. So I wouldn't. The system here is, as it's been added to. Initially, it was put in right, but because of the contracting that's gone on, and and just the way the work's been going
Yeah.
on, it's not been installed correctly. But the problem with the power issue is, again, is this supply and demand that we're facing everywhere. We're limited in certain aspects that the power each road can draw. So with that in place, it's just managing our electricity right all throughout the
Yeah.
day, rather than at peak moments. Again, because I bet the electric does go off at times, because there was obviously too much usage.
Yeah, I was with an old friend of ours this morning, James, and he was showing me a photograph of one of these little manholes in the ground with
Yeah.
electrical cables going through it, and it was filled to the top with water.
Yeah, but, I mean, so you've got underground cables now that are meant to be underground, and they can handle being underwater. It's the way that their insulation is, and if installed properly, the moisture should not get into them. So, as much as that is, a bit alarming to look at, that the way the cables are built up and they've been manufactured, especially the mains underground cables, the
Yeah,
problem is the joints. it's the joints in them.
Well, what I was thinking about, Ben, was, you've got these kind of conduits at either side. You can see the cables in the middle, and there's these kind of conduits. If
Yeah,
that's filling up with water, depending on where you are in relation to that, if you're above it or below it, surely you could have water filling up these conduits that the cables are going through and heading down towards the houses, which is not a great idea, is it?
correct. Yeah, but as well with a lot of the ducting that's in the ground, it should have drainage holes impregnated in it. So
All right.
even
Okay.
though that is possible, what you're saying, that all of this has been thought of, and if installed correctly, should be fine.
Yeah.
With the mains DNO underground services, it's not really a problem till you look at things tripping with inside houses because of the protection they have outside. Um, isn't nowhere near as sufficient as the ones we do have inside, and
Yeah.
that's where you have a lot of the problems going on the inside.
Yeah, Christine is just saying that she's on the lower part of the Meekas Road near Aldi, um, and that doesn't seem to be the worst area. So yeah, I think, from what I understand, I mean, I see this in social media. I've got a blackout here. Has anybody else got no power? And you see this in lots of areas in Meekas, and maybe as you're saying, Ben, you know the older urbanizations compared to the newer urbanizations, maybe there are problems with the actual installation, the actual suppliers' installations in these older areas if they haven't been upgraded.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that is partly the problem, isn't it? Um, but as time goes on as well, we're always trying to make things a lot safer and protect people getting injured whilst at work, or people
Right.
whilst walking the streets, or different aspects. But the I think this is it's a health and safety reason. This really
Hmm.
is making sure that we are all protected as much as we can. And
Yeah.
part of the reason for the outages is the fact that if there is any sign of any default anywhere, it will trip. So
Yeah.
even though it does trip out regularly, and the 99% problems are due to probably poor installation, but
Yeah.
it is tripping because there is a protection system there that is fundamentally there to protect you, your family. I know people, well, I've known joints go up in the middle of the road in Northampton, well, my hometown, where their joints have been in the ground for a few years. The compound wasn't put in correctly, and it's blown up in the middle of the street, and that's what the protection's there for, is
Right.
if there is a fault, it will trip. So maybe you don't know that further down the line, due to poor installation, there could be a danger to death. Somebody could be walking near an overhead line pole, something could be loose, and it's tripped because of that reason to possibly save somebody's life. So,
Well, actually, Ben, I have to say, I spoke to somebody just a couple of weeks ago whose friend's dog was electrocuted stepping over one of these, Endesa manhole covers, because there was
yeah,
obviously something
yeah,
really nasty going on underneath there, and
yeah.
the poor dog was electrocuted walking across it. It was wet,
I see,
so
and this is what I mean with the protection. So how far do we go with protection of circuits? And it's like in the UK with the mains cables in the UK, they're all jointed live, well, LV anyway, low voltage, so anything up to 1,000 volts, it's jointed live. There's procedures to do it, but when I was at my old job, a young apprentice died there, working on the roads at about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. He'd done the same job all the time, for the past 3 years. But it's one time he didn't do the job right and he died. So,
oh
but
my goodness.
you could put a different protection system on that, and it tripped. But
Yeah,
the customers, you'd have a problem with customers with the electric tripping all the time, and it's a really hard situation to say with protection, safety, and loss of supply.
yeah,
But that's how the DNO works. That's how the Endesa works. That's how Endesa will view a lot of this. Will be will be that reason. Is if there was a call for danger to, danger to death or danger to life,
Right.
then they're going to always say, the equipment
So
needs to trip, or there needs to be an outage. Yeah, there isn't always a problem with an outage, should I say?
right. So, but Ben, okay, we understand that when we get bad weather, we often have, and I'm talking about internally. I'm not talking about
Yeah,
cuts in power from the actual main supplier. I'm talking about within our homes. So that is likely to continue to happen because of the sensitivity of the fuse boxes that we have. And also, you've said that there are some things that you can do,
yeah.
while it's raining and while it might be wet. There are some remedial actions that you might be able to take. But what should we be doing when the weather's not bad to try to prevent this happening when the weather does turn bad?
Get your property looked at and maintained and inspected. That's probably the first thing. Or, for instance, if you have outside lights or outside sockets, anything that's outside, take some pictures of it, send it to me, and I'll say that looks okay or that doesn't look okay. And basically, it's the outside cabling and the outside units that are going to cause you problems. The
Right,
majority. It could be one outside light that's tucked away around the back of somewhere, that's got a broken lamp in it that's never been used, but that's the thing that's causing you all these problems.
right.
Because of the moisture getting into there. It's, for instance, we have a lot of, in Spain, we have a lot of the like the porcelain covers over the lights, and they're like a lamp
Yes.
holder, a lot of bulb holder inside with the porcelain. They're
Yeah.
key to having moisture in them, and there's them everywhere on all properties. So
Yeah.
just
And
it's poor design.
they're pretty, but they're not
Yeah,
necessarily practical, are they?
no, they're not IP rated, so you get dust and you get water or moisture inside of it. So
Mhm.
that's the problem. And they're
Ben,
the things that need highlighting. I mean, in like the UK or some areas of Europe, there's a lot of focus on making sure things are protected well and
right,
maintained. When over in Spain, it's not like that as much.
right. So Ben, I'm not touting for business here for you, but what should we be doing with regard to the overall electrical installation in our homes? I mean, how often should this be checked out? As you say, people have been here. I've been here 20 years, and yes, I've had electricians in from time to time to fix things. But what should we be doing to try to make sure it's
For,
in
for,
tip-top condition?
for starters, if an electrician's coming in or any work's being done on any property, they need to look at what they're putting it onto. Is the installation as it is safe and suitable for any additions, any changes? I went to a solar yesterday. It was that was poorly installed. It was put in. They'd messed it up again, and it was the customers have sold things, on this. Just sold it falsely, basically. But because of that, and because of them reasons with the electric and the different problems, there are ways you can limit them things going wrong, because of what you're going to do is have a look at the installation and do your pre-work checks to make sure that the installation is actually able to satisfy whatever works need doing.
Sure, sure. And should we be getting our electrics checked every so often? Is it every 10 years, every
Yeah,
15
yeah,
years, or
definitely. I would say if you're living in the house, I'd say definitely, if you haven't had one done, get an inspection done, and then probably every 5 years. But depending on what you're doing in your property, how if you're in the property a lot, if you're Airbnb in the property, if you've got rentals in there, there's so many different factors on why I would say one would need maintained or looking at more than the other. But
right?
yes, I definitely recommend some sort of regular. What happens is you can monitor the faults, and over a period of time, you can predict what's going to go wrong in the next 2 years, in the next 4 years, in the next 6 years. So it's really worth just knowing your installation. So managing your consumption is one thing, but knowing your installations,
Yeah.
is vitally important. Because when it starts tripping and there are issues, at least you know what to do, what to go for, what the problems are, instead of just freaking out and
Uh-huh.
thinking, oh my God, my whole electric's gone.
Yeah, and the other thing about Spanish properties is that they are not easy to add into the electrics, are they? Because
No,
I mean,
no,
everything is solid. You got solid walls, you got solid floors, you got solid ceilings,
yeah,
and you know, I don't know if this is something you come across, but people doing extensions to it, either for something outside or, you know, something in a
yeah.
shed or whatever, and all the cabling is running outdoors. Is that something that you see, Ben?
Definitely, yeah. And they've been put in with the wrong equipment. So even though it's working for that day or that week, again, this is what I mean with these standard installations. Is when they're normally pretty good, but it's these add-ons and these extras and these butchering of, you know, work that people do just to be able to get in there and get the job done, to get the money, you know. And that's sort of well, you've got to look at the installation before anything, you know, before starting to add on to, you know, what you've
Yeah,
got, or
but
you know, is it suitable?
I'm also thinking about DIY, Ben. You know, the kind of things that people do. Oh,
Yeah.
I can do that. I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of calls to people who, you know, who've had a go at, especially switching, light switching. But you know, it's if you can do it, you can do it. I suppose I don't really know what to say to that.
Yeah,
But I'm always here to help anyway.
but the thing is, Ben, it's as you say. You know, you do it and you think, oh, this is great. It works. But, you know,
Yeah,
you're unlikely to be doing that in the middle of a Sahara sandstorm or rainstorm.
yeah,
You know,
that's it.
and
That's it.
you think, "I'll do this at Easter when I've got some time free," and all the summer, it's working
Yeah,
absolutely fine, and then when we get our first rains, it's like pop, yeah?
yeah, definitely, definitely.
So, you would recommend a sort of checkup over your electrics, even if everything seems to be okay, every few years?
Definitely, they're not. Yeah, they're not expensive. Just get somebody to come round and go through it, you know, and have a look and see what needs to be done. And obviously, they need to know all the current regulations and the ins and outs of, you know, how the electricity works. But definitely give good feedback to the customers, just to, you know, to explain what's going on, really.
Yeah. We actually, a couple of years back, we got a visit from someone from Endesa who had been over working on one of the pylons, and he said to us, you've got a bad earth somewhere." Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we had to then get an electrician in, and he tracked it down, and he said, "It's your electric towel rail in the bathroom." You know,
Oh, yeah.
which I mean, it's just it's on the wall and plug it in. It's not something we'd actually installed. Um, but
Mm.
and he said the reason that it's shown up at the mains there is that for some reason it's not tripping in the house. So he replaced that trip fuse in the house,
Yeah.
and when we plugged it in, it popped up. So yeah, there are potentially problems around, aren't there?
And that, yeah, that with that there, if that test was done on the RCD, like I said, you know, test and reset every 3 months, test, reset. You know that if there is a fault, you can reset it, and you know it's going to trip on a fault. So it's definitely something, you know, bit key. You know, definitely start doing that. That's
Yeah,
well worth doing.
yeah. Okay. Any final pieces of advice, Ben?
Um, Not really. I mean, I just think that people need to be not panic. You know, in the situation when the rain comes down and you know, they do not have electric. Just it can be sorted. There'll be something someone can do to get some power, unless it's a power with the mains outside. You know,
Right.
but you know, I think having the if you are finding this problem, then definitely have a bit of a maintenance done and have a checkup. You know, it won't take long just to make sure that everything is IP rated and safe as it should be.
Right. Okay. So what's the forecast for the next few days, Ben?
Oh, I'm hoping it's looking nice. I'm hoping. I think it's getting bad again next week. So let's wait and see.
Yeah. So you know, you guys have just been run off your feet then over this past week or so, have you?
Yeah, well,
It's been crazy.
we've been out in all weathers. You know, we go out and we work, and it doesn't make much difference at all, really. Um, you know, it is what it is. It just gets you just get really wet. But then in the summer when it's really baking hot, it's the same problem. We're never happy, Bill. Never happy. So just get on with it, you know.
Ben, thank you so much for joining me today. And you're at LIT Electricians. If people want to look you up on Facebook, I don't have your. I don't think I've got your thing here. So if people have got problems, they can contact you via Facebook, yeah, or phone number.
Yeah, any time. Yeah, any time. Give me a call. Not, hopefully I can help you out over the phone quickly. That's normally the aim of the game. So, any
Right.
issues, just let me know, and I'll do as much as I can over the phone.
Okay, Ben. Thank you so much, and thanks to those who have joined us
Brilliant.
today. And we'll keep in touch, Ben. See if we can come up
Cheers.
with another topic that might be of interest to people in general. Thank you ever so much for joining us,
Thank you.
and for those who have taken part in the chats as well. Ben, you take care. Have
You too.
a good and dry week.
Yeah.
Okay, bye now.
Okay. Bye.